Welcome to another episode of Twice Told Tales. Today we're welcoming on the podcast Shima. She's a university student in Isfahan, and we thought we would talk about the protests and how they are playing out on the university campuses and those sort of things. So, welcome to the podcast, Shima. Do you have any introduction that you would like us to know further than that?
Okay, hello to everyone. My name is Shima, and I am 19 years old, and I'm a college student. I live in Isfahan, and they told me not to say that Isfahan is the best city in the world, but I'm gonna say it anyways.
All our viewership in every other city is now like, no.
Well, they can write the name of their cities in the comments, so we'll
That's
know
true.
which city is the better.
The best city in the world.
Yeah.
Or they could just go visit Isfahan and they'd be surprised.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and yeah, that's it, I guess.
So Shima, can you tell us what do you study and which university you study?
I study industrial engineering at Isfahan University of Technology, and yeah.
And can I ask you about some of your hobbies? As a young Iranian woman who's a university student, what are some of your hobbies?
What are some of my hobbies? I really love cinema. I love theater, watching movies, and also languages is also one of my hobbies. I really love languages. Let me
So
think.
apart from Persian and English, I know what language you kind of speak, but can you tell us also, tell our viewers?
Just a little bit of Spanish, and yeah.
Great.
And where did you practice your English? Because you have surprisingly I wouldn't be able to identify you as an Iranian ESL speaker.
No. Thank you. Where did I practice? Movies. I practiced my English in watching movies. Yeah.
That's amazing. I've experienced that with a number of people I guess it's a permeation of Western content that has made it so that everyone sort of has a neutral American accent.
Yeah,
I know.
It's like a double-edged sword.
It's surprising how you can see many young Iranians speaking American English without an accent, almost without an accent. Yeah. But everyone, not everyone has that ability. I mean, you have to have very good ears. You probably are pretty good with music if you wanted to learn, because you can, you're very good with the intonations and tones. So that probably could help with understanding music. Okay, that's great. So just starting with the protest, which is the main topic of our conversation today. Can you tell us about how you felt when the protest first started and what you heard about the tragic death of Mahsa Amini?
When I first heard about Mahsa Amini's death, I was actually not very much shocked. I was really sad, but I was not shocked because I already heard about all the brutality that the morality police does, always. And my friends told me about the experiences they had with the morality police, and I was like, it was just a matter of time before someone would actually die, because I remember even myself when this morality police would say something to my friends, and my heart was just it was coming out of my chest, and it wasn't even to me. I wasn't the one that they were talking to, but so I was not shocked. I was just so sad about it. But then the protest started, and I was kind of happy because I was like, okay, this thing is not something negligible. It's not like you can't just overlook it. You can't say, okay, this happened and I'm not going to do anything. You should do it. You should do something. And yeah, so that's how I felt.
So you told us that it wasn't something shocking because you knew it would happen at some time, and that your friends had experiences. You personally had experiences with the morality police or the guidance patrol, like
No,
yourself.
I don't have that experience because I don't know. I think I was just lucky. Yeah, because it's not really about like I was gonna say that I wasn't like I would not wear hijab so like improperly, but Mahsa Amini wasn't also, so I wouldn't say that. I would say that I was just lucky to not get caught.
Yeah. So like you would have your wear your scarf almost the same way that you're wearing right now, right? I mean, this is how you wear, and you haven't had experience. And also, like, can you tell us about your friends' experience? Have any of them ever been like arrested or taken to a detention center, or it was that
They
like
had
people
to
would come?
like they were taken to some like places they have, and they would have to sign somewhere, and then they would threaten them that we're gonna call your parents, and if that person was like scared, they would like make this happen. They would call their parents, but some people were like, okay, call my parents, I haven't done anything wrong. And probably they would not they're yeah, so it was like more of a threat, like signing somewhere that, yeah.
Right, like giving, like promising that you wouldn't, for example, repeat dressing improperly. But have any of them like been, for example, beaten or hurt by the police in detention? Or it was
Physically,
more like, oh, okay.
like verbally, but yes, because like they were just feeling free to call them whatever they wanted. Just because she was not wearing the hijab properly, she would be called like many bad words.
Yeah.
By the police themselves or by just other people?
No, by the police themselves.
Okay.
Like, you're such a blah 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 person, you know.
Yeah, like labeling because they're not dressing the way they consider proper. Yeah, Chris, you wanted to ask a question?
Separate yourself from like if you try and back away and look at objectively at how you were processing the information you were bringing in about like the anger you were feeling, how disturbed you were. Would you say that how much were things you're reading on social media that aren't directly connected to your personal life versus what you're actually your friends, your direct friends and yourself experience? Like, do you think social media played a big part in how the sort of the emotion to protests came about? Because it seems to me there might be a difference in how other protests in the past have sprung forth versus this one, because there was social media is a more integrated part of people's lives now.
So your question is that whether social media played a role in like
in what
the protests, or like
for yourself, like what percentage do you think, or how much of an impact do you think social media played in your sort of resolute position to?
Well, of course a lot, but like it's not necessarily like a bad thing, because
No.
if there was like no social media, and I probably wouldn't even know about Mahsa Amini's death, but because of social media, I knew about it, and I thought, well, we should take some action, and.
Right.
Before like continuing that discussion, which is I think very important to know, just for our viewers, I wanted to ask you if at any time the Islamic Republic decides to abandon the obligatory or mandatory hijab, how would you dress? Would you like not wear the scarf? Would you continue dressing the same way?
I think I would continue dressing the same way for myself, but many people are now just wearing this scarf thing because of the obligation, and they would probably stop
Give up on
wearing
it.
what
Yeah.
they do.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
but for yourself, it's not a big issue. Like it doesn't make
No,
you.
it would. Yeah, because like this is how I think. This is how I want to be dressed, and yeah, I will continue dressing.
Is the morality police abolished? I read something that there was like on the verge of abolishing them nationwide. No. No.
That's more like a, I don't know. That's more of a
Kind of like
joke.
media
Nobody
rumor.
knows.
Okay. Yeah. All right.
Well,
But
the
it
thing
looks like
is,
it's not enforcement is like really lax from what I've seen video content
I
recently.
yeah, I haven't seen any morality police anymore. I mean, there weren't as many in Isfahan probably as you could see, for example, in Tehran because the city is smaller. I personally haven't, but Shima, what about you? Have you, after the death of Mahsa Amini, have you seen any guidance patrol bans?
I haven't seen them, but I have heard from one of my friends that he was with her sister, and a morality police came and told her
Just recently.
yeah, just recently, like
Okay.
probably last.
Yeah, that's
week.
what I've heard.
But it was more like I am not sure if they were like the morality police or like guardian forces. I'm not sure about that, but
Or just, or maybe not random people, because that is also what I'm hearing.
or maybe even random people. Yeah.
Because I have heard from a friend that they were stopped by just random women actually. I'm hearing a lot of noises. Is that my problem? Okay, no, it's okay. So yeah, I heard from another friend who was stopped by just random people because they thought, I mean, she was not wearing a scarf at all. So she was stopped and told that she has to wear a scarf. Yeah, so it's, but the news that went viral and the government's response is not very clear. You don't really know if they are going to abolish it or they're not. They're keeping it vague, so you have to guess what's going to happen.
I think they
Yeah,
don't
but they
know
said
what to do themselves.
exactly. Yeah, I think the thing is at this time they know because as I have said, the discourse on abolishing the guidance patrol has been there for a very long time. It's not even like last year or a couple of years ago. Like it's been there for many years, and people were suggesting that it's not helpful. It's actually harmful and counterproductive and everything. But with the protests, I think the government is now at the position that they don't want to show that these protests were producing a result because this was something that they were already considering. This is my guess. So they're waiting for things to calm down and then make a more clear decision on what they're going. But they have also announced that they are reviewing both like how the law has to be enforced and even receiving like comments and reviews from different NGOs and personalities on whether to even abandon, to just like totally abolish the mandatory hijab or not. which I don't think it's going to happen anytime soon. But yeah, that's where things are standing. So Shima, you said that for yourself, social media played a role in how, for example, you felt towards the protests, as like you used it as a way to get informed. But I also want to ask you, how much do you think the things that you were observing on social media matches the realities that you were experiencing, especially on campus at university?
I think it really depends on which social media you're following. Like, if I go to Twitter, like a revolution has already happened, and like in Twitter, on Twitter, like it's just like, yeah, everything has been done, and like the new government is now settling it. But like, I wasn't just following Twitter. I was also following Twitter, but I wasn't just following Twitter. And I think because I was following several social medias, it was not like, and also like in the background, I had what was happening in the real world. It wasn't like really far. It wasn't like something like I couldn't say, yeah, that social media is not happening. Like I would just go to the streets, and because our home is near to one of the center places of protests, it wasn't like I would see something, and I don't know, maybe Telegram, and I would just go and hear it myself. So yeah.
So,
But
like, you would be informed of what was going on faster by like on social media than the reality, even though you were actually living very close to where the protests
yeah,
happened.
exactly. But it wasn't like
So it's,
so far. Yeah.
so it's a very effective tool of protest. Like,
Yeah, very
yeah.
effective.
Which service do you think is? I mean, Telegram is probably obviously the most. I don't know.
Yeah, I think Telegram is it's because like most of Iranian people use Telegram, and that's why Telegram is like maybe and they send videos. There are lots of videos there, and that's why Telegram is probably.
Yeah, and because Telegram has the option of like channels and groups where you can in a one click you can send content to thousands and thousands of people. And it's also
So,
because after everything like got like all those social medias got blocked in Iran, Telegram still remains the one that finds ways, like you can use proxies within the application, so you don't have to install another VPN, and it's much easier to keep connected with Telegram even if you don't have a VPN. So that's another reason. Yeah.
Yeah, built-in VPN makes it a really challenging product to control or service
Exactly.
to control.
Yeah. So
So
tell us about, yeah, Chris, go on.
I was going to ask, like, because the beginning of this protest was really confusing to me personally, because like I was getting messages from both everywhere. There wasn't even two sides. It was just kind of a mess. And like the video, like one video would come out and another video would come out and they would be contradictory. And the one that was probably the most difficult to explain was the Mahsa Amini's death, or the video of her suffering whatever she died of in the police station. So, like, was that widely shared, and how did that impact the view of her death among protesters? Because it's not clear in that video that she was beaten. It looks like she just collapsed from some kind of cardiovascular condition. So it was interesting to me that video didn't cause any questioning. So I'm curious, like, do people think it was like propaganda, like government propaganda, or how do protesters view that?
I would say that this didn't. I'm now remembering that I watched this video, but well, this video was very vague at first. But another thing is that before actually Mahsa Amini's death, maybe a year ago, I don't know. There were some other videos and there were some other videos out of the morality police beating people, and because of that, it wasn't like I told you I was not shocked because they were already some videos out, like even before Mahsa Amini's death. So yeah, it wasn't really ambiguous to us. I told you why, because it was like the brutality was already obvious to everyone.
So, like in that context, what you just said, like, do you think like the protest is justified regardless of how, like, the details of how she died in police custody? It was just there was so much wrongdoing to that point that it just needed a spark, and then the details didn't really matter because it was time to have a protest anyway. Is that sort of how it was? Okay.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm. And by videos where the guidance patrols were beating people, you're referring to. I think I've seen a couple of videos where the police are forcefully dragging people into the vans, right? Not from inside the police station or anything. It's in the process of forcefully.
Exactly. But they're like just taking them,
dragging
them on the floor, and the girl is like screaming, and the police is just doing her job.
Yeah. So how do you do you think, well, let's put the question like this first. What about now? What is happening now at universities or on the streets, as far as you're observing? Are you seeing protests?
What I'm more seeing is like a really large shutdown, like all the stores and shops and malls, all of them are just closing on the days that are told that okay, this is the protest day, and these are usually like a 3-day protest. It's like I don't know, 13, 14, 15, I guess. I don't know. And all the stores are just closing, and so this is like the most recent thing that happened. That's what I.
Are you telling us about what you saw, or what you see on what you saw yourself, or what you are hearing on social media?
No. What I saw. All the stores were closed. Like many stores were closed. Like it was like a ghost city.
Can you tell us like which part of Isfahan? If you don't want to say like the exact name of the streets, can you tell us like which part of Isfahan?
I think like my bus from my college takes a long way. It's kind of like out of the city, and it comes out of the city into like the center of the city, and like I saw most of the regions were closed. Yeah.
But like through where you drive, like the bus drives, you didn't. I'm asking because I was out, and I actually I was sending videos to my friends that I actually didn't see any shops closed on those days. I had something to do at a university, and I didn't see. But it can be on different days. Like some streets, or in my neighborhood, I saw maybe one shop closed, which I don't know if it was because of the hours or because they were actually on strike. But yes, that's something that was very different in different neighborhoods. And it's good to know, like, from yourself, like your observation versus what we are hearing online. But universities were not closed. Like, you went to universities and your classes were held. So when was the last time
my classes were not held because we didn't participate in the classes, but like all the teachers and professors all came, and it was like nothing had happened, but then we didn't participate in the classes.
Like nobody, like your class was canceled because nobody from your class participated in the university. You're talking about
Like,
these 3 days or in
yeah,
general? Okay.
these 3 days and like the other protest days that were.
Okay.
And so the students were like striking against university?
No, it's more like yeah, they were like trying to be a part of this protest. Yeah, because
Is the protest pouring onto the streets, or is it just staying at home, not doing anything?
it really, I think it really differs from like which city you're in. My city is kind of like not many people are on the streets, but like I think I've seen some videos. I've just seen them. Some videos of some other cities that they were holding protests.
What about in Isfahan?
Yeah.
I mean,
no,
like
not
not
really.
now.
Not
Like
now.
recently, you haven't seen any protests yourself, or even
Yeah.
videos. But let's say like 1 month ago, how did you see a lot of protests, and how big do you feel they were? I mean,
It was very
based
big.
on your observation.
Yeah, like I remember that one time we had to for an exam we had to stay late in our university, and then after we came out it was like it was like one of those protest days, and we could not get to our home. Like we had to it was so scary. Like we wanted to go into some street, and the guardian forces would just come to us and tell us that go to the alley, don't just stand here. And we were just so scared. And Isfahan had also some like really big protest days, but like recently it's been very much more calm.
That's are you familiar with this strike that's going on now? Like, have you been following it on social media? Like, like the activities? Because I'm like, I don't speak Farsi, so I can't follow that side of it. And I would be really interested in hearing like what it seems that the reason for like what the outcome of the strike is supposed to be. Is it supposed to be that like shops and little businesses aren't working, and so the people who want to buy those things are then like not gonna want to support the protests? Or like, is it so like, it just seems like if you're the government and all the people who are like annoyed with you are like locking themselves in their home or not being out and doing anything, and then the people who are pro-government are the ones that keep their shops open and get all the business. But I don't understand how that. Can you explain it to me, because it's confusing?
Well, at first, even some like some of the stores that are with this regime cannot be open because people would do very bad things to them. Like I think that I've heard that some stores have been set to fire because they were like open.
So it's a mandatory strike for some of them.
Kind of, yeah. Like, and also like I've heard from some poor like people that were working in the stores, and they were saying that we did not know what to do, because if we would just close, like some guardian forces would come and tell us that you have to stay open, and if we would open up, people would come, and we just did not know what to do. So I understand your question, but it's like people want a change, and like many people that are protesting now, and or maybe thinking about like something, they may not really know what exactly they want. Like I may not even know what I exactly want, but I know that what this regime is just doing now is not the answer to my questions. And because of that, we have to do something. And well, in the protests, people just die. So many people die. And after like a long time, like 2 months have passed, and like people do not know what to do. That's like probably the only thing they know. Like that's the only way they know how to talk. Yeah, and their voice is not being heard. You know what I'm saying?
But that's really interesting, and I just want the confusion that you're expressing is fascinating to me because as like observing this situation, I would be interested to know what you think or you personally feel like is like, let's say the government collapses, like who or what is it that you feel is the sort of like the guiding force that would reconstitute a government? Like who's the bigger power that would be able to come and like reorganize the government? Because I don't like if you just throw a whole bunch of protesters in a room together, it's going to be very difficult to figure out the power dynamic on who's going to lead it. And I that's true with all protests. Like very difficult to find that dynamic. And I know a lot of people feel this way now. It's like they just want change, but they don't know what the change is or how to organize the sort of change that come or the governmental structures that would come afterwards, or even just protest leadership or any of that. So I'm just curious, like, what do you think is the power that would help out or guide?
Replace the current state.
Well, what I think is that right now, as it is probably like this is just my point of view on that. I think that we do not have a really adequate substitute right now for this regime, but this does not mean that we want it. Like I think that this all these protests have to just keep going until some other adequate power emerge and like take the power. But like not doing anything is not the way. Like yes, I do not know who will come after this regime, but this does not mean that I'm satisfied with the situation and I'm not going to do anything. I should really shout loud until something better comes up. I think that's...
And you think the political structure doesn't allow for people to work within it to bring that change? It's not possible to like have a
it's like
democratic
like maybe before this like maybe like I don't know, before these 2 years I had some 2 or 3 years I had some little hope, but just the situation is just keep getting worse, and it's like it's just letting all the people down, and it's like, okay, this regime is just so rotten already inside that it's not going to just even hear what the people are saying because it does not want to, like, or maybe it does not understand.
What's funny is like everything you said, I would say about the U.S. like exactly the same way you said. Exactly. There's no difference. Like it's so rotten, and there's no way to do anything democratically. It's all fake. The democracy is completely fake we have here, and it's just proven itself time and time again. And every time something happens, it reproves itself. It is totally fake. And even the left, the most progressive people you would expect, are absolute frauds. So it's a.
So Chris, do you want a regime change?
Yeah, absolutely. But I was asking that question for me as much as you, because I don't know who would do it here, and it's impossible to have a protest here because you think you have like state intelligence that's really rough. Here it's even worse because they're like super secret about it. So like they have all your data, they have everything, and they it's they have their main core database of all the dissidents, which I'm probably on, and it's they know everything. And anyway, I would love to know who to look for. Like, I don't want China to come in and control things, but I know that the protest would never work. I don't think that's.
We want to do a Voice of Iran English, Voice of Iran English channel, and hire someone with and tell you what to do in your country to bring about. How do you feel about that?
Well, I mean, I don't think I think we already have that. It's just called CNN. So I mean, it's like we have already this.
No, but I mean something from Iran. No, something from Iran. I want it to be from Iran, like Voice of Iran.
Yeah. Well, it would definitely fit in terms of subversive media. It wouldn't be any different. Because everything we have is just paid for by oligarchs who just want to maintain the power dynamic. But so I don't know who pays for it. There is outside oligarchs who want to maintain the dynamic in Iran of like extracting resources and.
No, but I mean, like, imagine there was a Voice of Iran, which was aimed in English, which was aimed at like promoting regime change in America. I want to see like how you would feel about that.
Well, I mean, obviously, we have so many like media choices and terrible media already that I don't think the way it works here that it would be difficult because of the dynamic. The dynamic is there's cultural imperialism in play. There's this.
Are you saying we can't
cultural
do
hegemony?
that?
So people in Iran, even though they understand that sanctions. Sorry, what did you say?
I said, are you saying that we don't have the power to do that?
Well, I'm trying. Currently, the way it works is like even though people are being sanctioned by America unilaterally in Iran, so America is like intentionally hurting Iranians, the poorest of Iranians. Even though they're doing that, like a lot of Iranians still look to America as if it's somehow a model or somehow can help them, and it's like so it has to do with Hollywood. It has to do with a lot of the messaging that comes out that makes it kind of an uneven playing field because people still have this kind of like American dream mentality. Like there's this great, wonderful leader country that can like teach everyone democracy. I mean, just ask Iraq about that. They really learned democracy well from our invasion. So like, I mean, it's hard to compare the two because this cultural the soft power of America has been so brutal across the globe. Like I was saying, I mean, your accents are both almost perfect neutral American accents from the pervasive nature of this like information warfare. And so people, I think,
and I should tell you, I have never been a good movie watcher at all. You know that. It's like and this is so
it's fascinating.
And still it's affecting.
It's hard to speak of that, like what you were talking about, like whether Iran could have an influential media. I mean, press TV already is kind of a joke. Like nobody would listen to it here unless you really understand the situation, and then you can hear it and be like, "Oh wow, I really like press TV personally." But if you ask like 10,000 people on the street, maybe 2 of them would have heard of it. Maybe. I mean, that's a really stretch. So it's really not known.
And you know that they imposed like new sanctions on press TV and they put it down from another satellite. Yeah, I mean, so that tells me that they are doing something good. Otherwise, like, why would you want to take a channel down from a satellite and keep sanctioning it if you think it has absolutely no power, right? So they try hard to block any information coming from inside Iran, but still it's not working. But I mean, bringing that up, I want to ask you, Shima, how do you feel about like Voice of America, or I don't know, Iran International, BBC Farsi, or all those Farsi channels, Farsi speaking channels, funded and run by other countries, including Saudi and the role that they're playing with the protest now? How do you feel about that?
I think you already know my answer. I detest all of them, but like I do detest them so much. But like on the other hand, because if these channels were not there, probably like many of the things that had happened, like I wouldn't even know about them. Like it's like I'm watching this channel and I hate what it's saying and I hate it all. And if someday it's going to take power over me, I would just not want that. But still, it's kind of good because it is like trying to lead the protesters to somewhere. Like because of the many protests had happened, but I also do detest them because I know what the actual aim is behind all these channels. So yeah, it's kind of like a two-way.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So you see it as a good tool against the current state, but because you know their intentions, you also don't like you don't think that they're doing it because they care about human rights in Iran.
Exactly.
Do you think they really care about human rights? Mm-hmm.
No, of course not. They're just like some other rotten systems trying to get what they want, and not anything. That they do not care absolutely for Iranian people. And I think also like Manoto channel, people have stopped following them because it just kept posting videos and pictures of people without hiding their faces, and people were like, okay, don't do that to people. This is going to be bad for them, but it was just keep doing that and posting pictures without hiding the faces, and because of that,
putting people in
on the spotlight, and like many people on Twitter were just like, okay, I'm not going to follow this channel anymore.
Right. Yeah, Chris, do you have any questions?
Yeah,
I was going to ask something, but I forgot.
Okay, well, so that's sort of how I end up in that same space where it's like every system around the world is basically rotten, and they're all trying to compete for power. So I think the real danger is this kind of information warfare that sort of idolizes a particular system. And then it's dangerous because then you're like, oh, well, if we could just do it how the UK does it, it would be so much better. But then when you actually know what the UK is doing to its people or to the world, you're like, oh, okay, this isn't what I was expecting. And the US the same. I mean, we're like involved in like this horrible war of attrition in Ukraine. We're just basically slaughtering every Ukrainian until, they're done so we can just transfer money from the U.S. government into some private weapons contractors' hands. And the cost is just Ukrainian blood. I mean, everyone gets worked up in the narrative, so they think, oh, we're fighting Putin or whatever. But it's just everyone knows Ukraine's going to lose. I mean, in the government who's making these decisions, the idea is just how can we put money into our friends' hands in the Defense Department. We can't just give it to them in a check because that's corruption, but we can create a war or perception of a war in which people are just dying, which we've done a number of times in the last few decades. Almost every war has been this, and even Palestine, that whole situation with Israel is just a way of laundering money into the Defense Department at the cost of people's lives. So the U.S. is pretty brutal. It's pretty terrible influence in the world when you start to get it. And so it's like I don't like part of me is like, okay, what are the practical outcomes of the system? So if you look at Iran, like how good is it to raise a family? How good is it for children? How good is it for like the like safety, security? Like you really can't, in no city in America could you leave your door unlocked. It's just not possible. Like it's just very, very high levels of theft and crime and homelessness. I mean, in my city, there's well over 10,000 people who are homeless, sleep outside in the cold every night. And they build. I was talking to Satara about near her house, they're building public toilets in one of the parks, and I was like, we don't do that in the U.S. intentionally so that homeless people don't have toilets, because if they have toilets, then they'll hang around the parks and then people feel uncomfortable. So they intentionally like make life difficult for homeless people by not providing public toilets in parks, which also makes it difficult for the people. And so it's like, that's the level of mentality we have here, is we just brutalize people who can't afford a home because the system is not for them. I mean, most of the time isn't their fault. It's because they family issues, or they got sick and we don't have good health care. So you can just get homeless if you get cancer because it costs $300,000 to pay for your treatment. So you lose everything you own. And it's, that's really common here. So you could recover from cancer, but then end up living on the street the rest of your life. So it's not a great system. So I'd like, if you look at the details of that, like, is the current system in Iran that much worse that taking hints from Western media about, the time for protests or whatever, for me as understanding the critiques of America, it seems, I'm curious as why that happens, like how America is able to inject these narratives and get people who rightfully, I mean, obviously you have issues with your government and that's totally right, but like it's almost like it happens in a time frame that suits the West. Like they were able to get this anger to boil up at the times they wanted to, and whether that's with social media or not. And so I would love to hear your comments on everything I just said, because I was just ranting to help Satara get the questions.
Yeah, you made pretty good comments, and I think like what you said, I think it's important to know that do we know any government in the world where like everyone is happy with the government? I mean, obviously not. And if you see something like that, you have to be suspicious about how the government is controlling dissent and that you're not hearing from them. But one thing that I wanted to, I mean, there are a few questions that I'm thinking about. How much do you think these protests were about changing the current government or regime change, and how much do you think it was about abolishing the morality police or guidance patrol?
I think at first, when it started out, it was more like all the protests were aiming to the hijab issue. But then as it kept going, it is more like leading to where we want regime change.
Do you have a favorite slogan from the protests?
Let me think. Well, let me think.
If that's a difficult question, you can tell us about how do you feel in general about all the slogans that you have been hearing during the protests?
Well, I really like the ones that are talking about like equality, or just there's one that says killing for hijab. That much of like hideous. I mean, it says that کشتن برای روسری تا که چنین خاک بر سری. It's like one of the ones that I really like. It says that
like
are you actually killing someone for their hijab? Is that what you're really doing? Aren't you ashamed of yourself? So like, I really like the ones that are talking about like freedom, but I also know how like how much of a like freedom is such a abstract concept. Like what do you mean by freedom? Like freedom is really different. How I perceive freedom is really different to how some other person would perceive it. And so I kind of do like them, but I also know that they're probably like a little empty. Like if we start talking about them, like we would just agree to disagree that, okay, I do not agree with you. But they were also like some but I really like the ones that were really pointing out the corruption in the regime. I really like those slogans. I also did not really like the slogans that were just like pointed out to they were about like mullahs, and they were just curse words, really bad curse words, because I know a lot of like mullahs myself personally, and I do not think that this is just right. Like, how is this even freedom? You're just saying that, okay, let's kill that person because like they're a mullah. Like that's just not how I think.
Like the slogans was
be...
calling for the killing of the mullahs.
Yeah, they were kind of like that, like, or maybe like really bad curse words. I don't know about their mothers, some sort of thing like
very vulgar.
Yeah.
Others shows how much they care about women.
Yeah,
you think that differed from the 2019 protests, like the vulgarity involved in the slogans in this protest?
It was much more intense, I guess.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I don't remember vulgar slogans from the 2019.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, maybe I don't remember,
but like, I really liked the slogans that were like pointed out to the corruption of the regime, like from its leader to like all the other parts. I really liked those slogans. Yeah, but like, I kind of did not know how to feel about the slogans that were like about freedom or like life, woman, life, freedom. I don't really know how to feel about that. I mean, it's just nice to say it. When you say it, you just feel like, oh my God, what a ideal word we're gonna have. But you also know that you're not gonna have it because it is ideal and not really possible. But yeah, I really like those slogans.
Why do you think it's not possible?
It's just like it's not possible in the world that we're living in. Like, just so
you mean because
many...
because you're living in Iran, or in general?
No, in general, like as we said that, okay, no government is like a good government. Like, which people are like happy about what government the government that they have. It's just not possible. I mean, it's just such deep philosophical concepts that it's kind of like it kind of gives me the feeling that it's not going to happen. But we can just try to get like close to these concepts, maybe, or maybe a little far from the counter. Like, I don't know, if there's freedom, there's also like slavery. We can try not to do slavery. That's something we can do. Maybe we're not like free, but we're also not like holding slaves. And that's something we can do.
Well, that is this concept, because like it's sort of like a progression. It feels like it's kind of a progression, but also could be some kind of cultural imperialism, because like the idea of what constitutes appropriate or modest attire or appropriate dress is really, really different among cultures. Like, I mean, you can find people who like Sudanese in South Sudan, they'll just walk around naked. So like, I mean, that's just normal because it's really hot and like, who wants to cover? I mean, it's like, why would you want to waste your time putting on clothes? So like it's normal. It seems weird because that's not what I grew up with, but and at the same time, like the argument from a conservative Muslim would be that freedom is actually wearing the hijab for women because it removes the sexual objectification of them. So like they're now free to be they're free of that because now they're no longer being judged by people by their looks or by their hair or whatever. And so that, as I understand it, that would be sort of the rationale for that form of modest attire. And now the slogan of the protest is to adopt or is to go against that as being mandatory, which I think most people would probably agree that you shouldn't enforce someone's religious beliefs on them. But yeah, it's very confusing to me to understand where the real anger is coming from. It doesn't seem like it's actually about the hijab. It seems like there's some other motivating force among people in this because from the American perspective, it's all sold as like a hijab protest, and it's really difficult to understand what the deeper angst, the deeper emotion is.
It's not like completely wrong. I mean, like one of the biggest aims of all these protests is about hijab. Like many people are now not wearing hijab to like support this protest. Many people that do not believe in hijab, and they're like, okay, I am free to wear as I want to, and so this is not like completely wrong, but I think one of the like big causes of all this anger is the economics. It's just so bad that people are just being suffocated under like they do not it's just keep getting worse. It's not like there's no hope or light for us now. It's just keep getting worse, and people get angry when they cannot eat as one person should be eating. And or like I don't know, like if me as like a 19-year-old person, and as if I want to like own a car, I should like probably wait like 20 years, 30 years to own like a not very good car.
Yeah, cars are, by
right.
the way, very expensive in Iran.
Yeah,
like
cars,
gas
houses.
is not. Gas is very cheap, but the car itself is especially over the past few years, it got ridiculously expensive.
So
yeah.
So can I add on to that? Like this is additionally curious to me that so a large portion of these protests now globally is driven by the Iranian expat community in the West. There's a huge amount of anger because a lot of people expatriated themselves from Iran for political reasons because they didn't like the government, and so now they don't like them. But and a lot for economic reasons too, because you can, like you said, it's very difficult to earn. But the core of that currently is sanctions because Iran is not allowed to trade, and because of the U.S., it's the U.S.-led unilateral sanctions. The U.S. bullied most of Europe into complying with these. So it's a U.S. project to crush the Iranian economy. So what I don't understand is why all these expat Iranians are not protesting sanctions in their respective government. I don't see any American Iranian.
They're actually calling for. They're calling for more sanctions. Some of them are calling for more sanctions.
Yeah.
So I don't understand that either. It's like I totally empathize with what you're saying. Like I visited Iran and I totally get that it's very painful and like the exchange rate is absurd. But this is all driven by concrete policies that the U.S. government is doing. It's choosing to do it. It's not like fate. It's like the U.S. choosing to hurt Iran, and then the people who live here who are Iranians who care about Iran are asking the U.S. to hurt them Iranian living in Iran more because they're not protesting these bad policies of sanctions. So it's like, to me, that seems like way more of a priority than the way women cover their head.
There are several things. Well, at first, I do not think I do think that the U.S. sanction is one of the main reasons of this very bad economics, but I do not think that this is the core. Like, I think the structure of this regime at first is the core of the way things are now. So this is one of the things, and also people. Another thing is that this regime, like from the beginning, it just started out as something. It started out with the slogan of Islam. It wanted to be an Islamic Republican, and it just is not. Like, the way it's just the way Islam is just the way that the regime thinks it's better for its dominance, and also even the hijab thing. All of this, it's not even like about the Islam part of that. Like, the government says that, okay, people should wear hijab, but not because it actually cares about the Islam rules, more because it wants to like keep the dominance as it is, and to say that
So
we
you
have
think-
like control over people.
So you think the current government is not really implementing the true Islam? Like,
Of course
would you
not.
say you would want to see a better implementation of Islam, or are you the type who would say you don't want Islam implemented in the country?
I think when you start using a religion, like any religion, as something to gather people around yourself, and then you're gonna do, if you do anything wrong, afterwards people would think that this is because of that religion. And that is probably one of the reasons why most people from my generation do not like Islam anymore, because they just think that, okay, this regime is Islam, and if this regime is Islam, I hate Islam. And
Can I ask, how about yourself? I mean, that's a personal question. You don't have to answer if you don't want to. But what about yourself? Do you consider yourself still liking Islam?
I have very vague opinions on that. Like, I'm
Okay.
like, I can't say that it has not had an effect on me. I cannot say that. Like, I know that, okay, this religion is not this regime, but I cannot say that it didn't affect on me, or like,
No, but I mean, like,
Islam.
you consider yourself a Muslim, like you like to be a Muslim, or no, you don't want to be? I mean, because I'm asking this because I've seen some so-called opinion polls that want to say that the majority of Iranians are not practicing Muslims anymore.
I would not say the majority of people in Iran, but like, I would say that it's not like small, the amount of people that do not want Islam, but I would not say that the majority of people do not want Islam. Yeah, I would not say it that way.
What about in terms of the protests, as like the discontent with the government? Do you think that is a majority or a minority opinion across the population?
Like, to want a regime change, you mean?
Yeah.
I'm not really sure. I think it really depends on the generation we're speaking about. Like,
Well, I mean, just the population, like of like active political people. So like people above the age of, is it 18? When do you get to vote in Iran? 16, 18?
18.
So let's
It
say
used to
above
be
the age of
15.
18. Do you think that this like regime change protests, or combined with the idea of anti guidance patrol, like the amount of people who are agitated currently against the government, do you think that constitutes like a majority or a minority? Because obviously, if you look at the, I don't know, social media of the government there, they'll show these giant protests. There'll be like millions of people on the streets, and they'll say this is a pro-government protest. And then if you watch CNN here, they'll say, oh, the government in Iran's about to fall because everyone hates it. So I don't know what to believe. So what do you think do you think there's a majority of Iranians who want the government to change?
I think it's the majority, but like I'm not, but like in that majority, like there are lots of like difference in the opinions of what they actually want. But I think the majority of people want change because I told you, like, even if like I have no problem with the way like this government or this regime is implementing Islam, and like I have no problem with it. Okay, just the morality police is perfect. I still do not have anything to eat. Like the economics is just pressuring people, and
did you say that the majority,
because of that, like?
Yeah, sorry to interrupt you. It's because of the connection. I wanted to ask you, so are you saying that the majority want change or they want regime change?
I think the majority want change, but like what percentage actually wants a regime change, I'm not sure about that.
Mm-hmm.
Because my follow-up would be like, just how would you define Iranian democracy then? Because like I don't know if it's a majority want regime change or not, but it seems like if there is a majority who want regime change, then Iran is acting undemocratically to not like impose
It is.
Temporary government and snap elections or whatever. So yeah, that's interesting.
But over 40%, almost like 48% of like people who were eligible to voted in the election. I mean, to understand if the majorities want, I mean, it's very different to talk about people wanting change, which I also believe the majority want some changes, especially with the economy. But about regime change, I mean, you can just look at the elections, and that kind of gives you
not
some sort of an image.
Not necessarily. Because
okay, yeah,
it was like I can remember that, like, I don't know, from maybe 10 years ago or more, it was like I do not want neither of those two candidates, but I'm just choosing between bad and worse. Like, and this is not something like, this does not mean that I'm satisfied. I am participating in the elections, but I'm not satisfied. And
yeah, I'm saying, that's what I'm saying. Like, I mean, you want change. I mean, if you're taking part in the election, it doesn't mean you're happy with everything. You want change, and yeah, like we have the choice between what is like evil and more evil.
Yeah, what? How do you think I felt about Biden? Like, just curious. Sorry.
But oh my god, like Biden is, but it's yeah. Well, we should ask you.
Talk about bad and worse. America's the expert of that in elections.
Yeah,
that's all.
No, but my point is, if people are still taking part in the election, it means that they are still kind of hopeful to bring change through the same system. Not that they don't want change.
It's not always that I'm hoping like something good is gonna happen. It's more like I'm scared of the bad thing that is going to happen. Like,
Yeah, but you haven't given up like totally on the system, right?
Probably.
Because usually, I mean, it doesn't. That's how you like. I mean, that's one way, not the only way, but that's one way of assessing a system's legitimacy among the people. But I mean, yeah, I understand. And as I said, like it's very different to say that you want change or that you want regime change. And yeah, I'm sure, and I'm sure that the dynamics of Iranian society and how much once a certain change, it keeps changing. Like this year is very different from last year, and last year was very different from the year before. So I'm not making a generalization here, but usually one way of knowing is to look at the elections and like election turns out and everything. You said in one part of the points that you were making that the government is not listening to people. I was wondering, like, is there one thing that you think if the government did, then you wouldn't want regime change, like you would become hopeful?
I think like both cultural and economic changes should be implied. Like huge economic changes that people actually see difference in their lives. If probably that happens, and also like the situation is not like the Islam is not implemented in the way that is now. Like if they don't take it so hard on people to wear the mandatory hijab as they wanted to, I think these two could really be like hopeful things.
So if, for example, let's say if the government gave up on the morality police and showed some economic ease for the people, then you personally, I'm not talking about everyone, you personally would say that, okay, I don't want regime change at this point. I would be more pursuing more change rather than regime change.
Yeah,
Is that
because
something
like
that you would say?
I would, because like each revolution, just you have to so many people get killed to just have a regime change that you just really know for sure that this is like the last option. Like there's nothing that can be done. So now I'm going to do that. But like if economic changes actually happen, which are not going to, and also like the way religion is right now is not like the way it is. I think it's going to be like really
Okay.
important.
So a couple of more questions before we finish this one. It's quite like late. How did you feel about the US-Iran football match?
It was funny how I was numb and not feeling anything. Like um, in the
You were not happy, but you weren't sad. Is that
no,
what you're saying?
I was just not caring at all. I was like, this is not my team. I do not have any feelings for it. I mean, I was kind of like, okay, do I have any feelings? No, I do not. I just did not. I didn't.
What about Iran Wales? How did you feel about the win? Did you get
I was a
happy about
bit happy, like a bit happy, but I was like, no, no, just put it down. So like, especially after like the Guardian forces just went out on the streets and were like, okay, like I was killing people yesterday on these streets, and now I'm just having a party for my team winning.
Did you see that, or did you see that yourself, or that's also from the social media?
No, from the social media, but we my parents saw it, and they were out. I wasn't that day. But
Yeah, I mean,
it
there were
was,
pictures from everywhere.
yeah. But after I saw this, I was not even that bit happy anymore. I was like, okay. So yeah, it wasn't, but like it is my point of view. Like many people were happy. Many people said that this team is not like this regime's team. This is our country's team. I was not sure how to feel, but yeah.
So, you know that, like before, during the Pahlavi regime, you first let's ask this question: do you favor like the return of the Pahlavis?
No, of course not.
Okay, so how do you feel about Iranian football team's achievements during the Pahlavi regime? Like we got to the World Cup once, for example. When you hear about that, do you think of it as a Pahlavi team or Iran team?
I think it really like before before this protests and all of that, this team was also like being supported by this regime, but people still loved it. But now after this protest, they kind of like the team. I do not know if they were like threatened or anything like that, but it was like they were intentionally not supporting people. Like okay, like many football teams just do some acts, some like acts to show a little bit of support for the people, but they were like
What did you expect?
intentionally like
Yeah, what did you expect?
like I guess like
I'm asking
many
because you know that like one of the I forgot his name. One of the footballers did this symbolic act of cutting hair to show support for the protesters. And in one game, the football players refused to sing the national anthem. And in
they
another one, when they scored a goal, they refused to like show too much happiness, like they refrained from it.
it,
And in an interview, he started with the famous like in the name of the god of rainbow, which is
I
from
know
the child that was killed. So I mean, they did these things. What else would you expect them to do?
it wasn't like quite like that. Like in one game, they did sing the national anthem. In one
Yeah,
game,
in
they
the
didn't.
Iran-US one. Yeah.
Yeah. Also, like the pictures that were taken before, like before they were going to have the games, were just they were. I mean, partying. They were so happy, which they could be like I don't know. They could have normal pictures, but they did not. Also, like it did not quite felt like they were supporting. I mean, I'm not like expecting
Yeah.
anything like special, but it also they had that meeting with the president. Uh,
Hmm.
that was like so awe-inspiring. Like I was just shocked. Like, are you doing that in this moment right now? A meeting with the president and just bowing in front of him, like bowing in front of him like that. Like that was not something I expected.
Expat Iranians aren't protesting U.S. sanctions when that could arguably be understood as a big percentage of or big part of the economic struggles that Iran is going through.
I think that um, like the cultural aspect of each like the culture is one of the like it's the most important thing for people, like it is above all. And like when people are not feeling safe like on the streets because of like things like morality police and all of that, um, that is something that um, they would react to even more than the economics. Like I would care more for, like you said in your question, that okay, isn't it really more important than the mandatory hijab? No, it's not, because like uh, I have to think that I have freedom. I'm a free person, and then I would like care about like having something to eat. But like if I feel like I'm not even a free person, like even if I have something to eat, I would still like really suffer. So what I think is that culture is the most priority in each community, and I think like that is maybe the reason why that people really react to this protest more than like the other previous protests. And yeah, but like the economics and the U.S. sanctions, yeah.
Well, so you're saying culture is more of a motivator than the sanctions because it's sort of like the dominant thing in your life, as opposed to, I mean, I guess sanctions would affect how you can survive too in some way, but like it's maybe it's a more emotional, like an immediate emotional trigger would be culture. Is that sort of what you're?
Kind of like, yeah, probably. Like culture is like the first priority, I think. It's like something that all people can relate to. Like everyone can relate to that. But like maybe not everyone can relate to I don't know, like the economic problems. I
Well,
mean,
I
I
have
mean
two
they
scenarios.
can. In Iran they can, but like
Well, let me
um
pose two scenarios with you culturally and see how you think that. So, like, one would be, let's say you're in a village in rural Iran, and everyone's conservative, and they want to be dressing in a modest Islamic way, so that the women cover, and then some women choose not to. That
mhm,
sort of, in their eyes, of the way they view the purpose of covering up is really problematic because it disturbs the peace on the street or whatever, because you have a woman now in the way they would view it as being sexually objectified and like taking attention and um, making the other women feel uncomfortable and making some of the men act differently how they would. So the idea is, because men are more visually stimulated, the idea is you cover up women, and so that sort of brings a kind of tranquility to human interactions that you wouldn't have otherwise. That's how I understand having lived in the Middle East. That's how I understand that. So in their view, maintaining a sort of mandatory hijab would be the idea of maintaining kind of a stability, a tranquil society. So
mhm.
that's one scenario that's interesting to me, because I can view that, I can empathize with that situation as well as the situation that you're fighting for, and I have difficulty in kind of merging where.
It's not like the whole picture. Like women cannot go to stadiums. What do you have to say about that? Like
Oh, you
it's
mean with
not,
without a male guardian? Is that what you're
no,
saying?
like
Oh,
not at all. Like
so you couldn't attend
what?
a football match?
No, I cannot.
Oh, well, that's
And
that's
uh,
ridiculous.
let's, I mean, it's not just like about the mandatory hijab. It's about how women are like being considered less, or like
Sure, I
uh,
totally understand that. Yeah, yeah,
yeah, and when there is something like that, I mean, well, of course everyone can relate to that, and the protest will of course be much bigger than like maybe the economic protests. So
yeah,
that is what I'm trying to say.
yeah. Well, that's fascinating, and it is, as viewing it from the outside, it's kind of always simplified to hijab, and so there's obviously other things that are being
Mm,
sort of enforced by the guidance patrol that are in addition to
yeah.
hijab that are really difficult for people. Um,
Also, like when you like kill someone for their hijab, like the meaning of hijab, like the serene thing you just explained, like yeah, let's
Yeah, it's
like
not good.
it's
Yeah,
just
no.
it's going to vanish away. Like, are you still are you still sure that this is why they tell you to wear hijab when they like kill someone for the hijab? Like it
It's
just changes the
absolutely not
meaning.
acceptable. Yeah, I mean, it's just like in both scenarios, it's simply just a woman covering her head, and it's like a very cultural thing, and it's defined culturally. And a fascinating thought experiment on culture in terms of women's dress that I've come up with is also in the U.S. There are a lot of different social movements and people feeling that they're fighting for freedom in one way or another. One of the movements, especially in the feminist community, is to fight for being able to walk around topless, because in a lot of places men are allowed to walk around with their shirt off when it's hot outside in the summer, but women have to wear like a bra or something, some kind of sports thing to cover up. But they think that's oppressive, and they would like, so there's it's the campaign called Free the Nipple. It's a real thing.
I've
Look it
heard
up.
it. I've heard
Okay.
it.
So like in New York City, they're really fighting for this. And like most people, even in the most liberal city, that find that a little bit shocking, a little bit uncomfortable, and they don't really want it. Even though it's like theoretically their argument's pretty solid. If a man can do it, why couldn't a woman do it? Okay. There are a lot of complications involved in that argument, but like it's cultural. So like fundamentally, like what is modest and what's appropriate to wear that doesn't disturb the peace is very different depending on who you ask. Like for me,
Exactly.
I think most women in my city would not support that women can walk around topless. I just think that even if you polled women, I really don't think they would approve of that. And like I think in the Middle East, most hijab wearing, I don't know about Iran, but definitely in the Arab world, is policed by women. It's not, I mean, where there aren't government enforcers, where it's just culturally policed. It's done by grandmas and mothers, and it's not done by men. I mean, men may contribute by catcalling here and there, but it's not really. It's not a. It's a women are caring for their female relatives or whatever to try and make sure that the dress is appropriate. So it would be here too. It'd be mostly, I think, if women were walking around topless, it would be like mothers like scolding their daughters for doing that. So I just think I think we're dealing with like cultural things that aren't actually truths. It's not like it's fundamentally good to not wear a hijab, or fundamentally like there isn't, or walk around topless. Like it's like we're talking about things that are purely defined by what we feel we've grown up with, that is, or we feel is comfortable. So I don't know, how do you, so yeah, I mean, what do you think of that scenario? Do you think, and how do you think like the idea of what is appropriate dress can play out in Iran, because of there's a lot of cultural differences? I think that my scenario I proposed is very helpful for Americans who view like, I don't know, hijabs as inherently oppressive when it's simply just this different cultural attitude. Obviously, mandating a culture, but government enforcing a cultural attitude is where the problem is, I think.
Mhm. Well, I completely agree with you on that that subject that you just brought up. Like it's very relative to uh, like the culture that we're speaking about, and like the idea that each person has about like freedom and all of that. But like um, I think when like there are like a, two generations like come up that they do not like want to do something and they're just like forced to, like that's when something like these protests happen. Like you can't like force so many people to do something, even if that is like the proper way to do it. Like I don't know, but like maybe if like the whole world really comes to the conclusion that okay, free the nipple is like really
Yeah.
a good campaign, I think you can no more force those people to were otherwise. I think like I do not, of course, agree with this campaign, but I think if like a majority of people think that this is like the proper way of dressing, or this is how I want to dress, you can't force those people to do something that you are telling them. So
Yeah.
I think, I mean, I have, this is the idea that I have of freedom. I'm not sure whether it's true or not, but this is just my view on that.
Well, like places like I've lived, like Jordan and Palestine, they and Egypt's pretty much like this too, except in the villages if you go outside of the city. But like, there's a whole diversity of women's dressing styles, and some places like Jordan or Palestine, where there are a lot of Christians and Muslims living together, you can just immediately tell someone's religion by, or a woman's religion by how she's dressing, and it's sort of almost like you taking pride in your identity. Like there's oftentimes miscommunications and like cat calls from men to like Christian women, so sometimes they decide to cover up because it's just some of the areas are just, there's just, it makes it uncomfortable because of that cultural divide, but in general it's very peaceful, ability to coexist with different dressing styles. So
Yeah,
so it
that's
is
what I think.
possible.
Like if there was not like there was no government oppressing the right idea of something, people would really come, like they would not have to interfere with each other, and they would just live happily together with different sorts of ideas if like the governments were not like oppressing an idea to the people. I think people are not like, yeah, like as you said, Muslim and Christian people can just live together with different sorts of like hijabs and the way they are dressed, and they just have no problem with each other.
Yeah, well, it's interesting. One of the things that this has made me think about is in America we have what's called the separation of church and state, which a lot of conservative Christians, they lament this, but there isn't really, there is no religion in the state supposedly. Now, I don't necessarily, I think there's good and bad with that, honestly. So I think one of the like good things is in certain things which should be up to the person who's trying to experience the religion spiritually. So like if you're not really genuinely participating in a religion if the government is forcing you to do part of the religion. It's not like your choice. It's not a spiritual. You're not making a spiritual like
Exactly.
offering. You're not like you're not personally sacrificing some of your whatever you're doing, like your freedom or you're not doing that personally because of your love of the religion. You're doing it because you're forced to do it. So that's a very different way of experiencing religious faith. But the other side of the coin is in the US, we don't really have a moral compass in our government and our legal system. So, for example, we don't have, like, everything comes down to basically legal argumentation. So it's very difficult to control ethics and morality when there isn't sort of a unified, age-old like system of defining what's right and what's wrong. So like we have
But
the ability to launch these horrific wars and whatever, and there's not even a consideration of like whether these are moral or not. It's like it's just, so that's where I have a problem
it's
with it.
just
I
the
don't
way
know,
it is.
either are
Mhm.
ideal, but that's where I feel like there may be some benefit to having a religion. Even, I'm not saying you force everyone to be that religion. I'm just saying a government that is like in has a moral compass that it can say, okay, we have these religious scholars who believe in this, and we can say, okay, this is actually the what defines good behavior. It's it's really difficult in a system where you don't have sort of a mini dictatorial committee on what's good behavior, because then you just whatever, I can argue. You can argue
Yeah.
anything's good for anyone. So it's what do you think of that?
It's such like a double-edged sword, and it's like it's just the ambiguity of this question is like it comes down to the concept of, again, freedom, I guess. Like, okay, I'm free to do anything, but like anything, are you sure?
Yeah.
Should you really be free to do anything? And like having limits or not having limits. But it's like, I think that governments, when they have religion, it's good because you have some sorts of limitation, like morality and all of that. But it's also bad because it usually goes corrupt, and then people mistake the religion with that corrupt regime. So it's kind of like there's no way out of this. You just don't know what to do.
Do you know of libertarian, not European, like the American libertarian philosophy? It's like basically just keep your hands off me and my stuff. That's how they want to they want the government just to enforce like that you just that people shouldn't be able to touch, or like that should be the fundamental role of government, is to like prevent people from like
Touching
stealing
my
from each
stuff.
other, and like not having the government tell you what to do, or have like schools that are like paid for by the government, because then they're like tempted to teach government propaganda. So it's basically just like kind of creating a situation where it's just up to the people in their small communities to do what they want to do that's best for them, rather than like having a bigger system do it. I think it's an idyllic philosophy. I don't think it ever worked, but I think there's something to that which is interesting.
Me too. Yeah, from the team.
All right. So Shima, I know that you study at a prestigious university, just and it's very competitive to get there. So you're a very talented student.
Thank you.
In order to just make it clear for I know the answer, but I'm just going to ask you: do you have to pay for the university?
No,
it's free education for you.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So, yeah, I think that's about the questions that I wanted to ask. Chris, do you have any questions?
No, I mean, I think it was great. It was very interesting, and I would love to like continue to like interview people who are like in the like mindset that you are, in terms of like wanting change and trying to figure out how that would come about. So I really appreciate you shedding some light on that for us. And yeah, I guess we could just end it here. And
yeah, thank you, Shima, for your
You're
time.
welcome.
I know you retired coming back from university, and you gave us your time. Thanks a lot. Thanks everyone. Thank you. Thanks everyone for tuning into another episode of Untitled Tales podcast. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel.